we want you to know.
Genuinely one of the worst crises in post-war Canadian history. That was how the Globe and Mail described the state of relations between Canada and the United States this summer. It's tough to think of a time where things have been so bad between the two countries. Since the start of the trade war in 2025, the relationship between our two North American neighbors has deteriorated into a multifaceted crisis marked by escalating tariffs, economic contraction, legal challenges, and rising domestic political tension. While there have been some glimmers of hope, the overall situation remains precarious and raises questions about what lies ahead for both nations. At the beginning of the year, the United States launched a sweeping assault by imposing a 25% tariff on most Canadian imports, with a 10% rate for energy products. A move aimed at reducing the trade deficit while also tied to demands over border enforcement and drug control, concerns that many in Canada considered exaggerated and misaligned. In retaliation, Canada responded with equivalent tariffs on U.S. goods, initially targeting billions in products and planning to escalate further, though certain exemptions and delays were granted to avoid total disruption. These tit-for-tat measures triggered economic pain and generated social backlash, fueling campaigns to boycott American goods and services, discouraging travel, and sparking a surge in public opinion that overwhelmingly favored reducing economic reliance on the United States. And then came the package tax, a major blow that impacted everything from personal online shopping to business trade. It's been devastating for a whole range of Canadian industries and has escalated tensions even further. As the summer unfolded, Canada made early attempts at conciliation by revoking some retaliatory tariffs on U.S. products such as orange juice, peanut butter, appliances, and motorcycles, while keeping duties on steel, aluminum, and autos. But progress at the negotiating table remained elusive, and critics argued that these concessions weakened Canada's bargaining position. Now we find ourselves in a critical moment with the threat of further escalation looming large. And although there are calls for de-escalation and stabilization from various quarters, it's unclear whether either country is prepared to take the necessary steps to avert disaster. The economic fallout of the trade war has been severe. The Canadian economy contracted at an annualized rate of 1.6% in the second quarter of 2025, the first decline in nearly 2 years, driven by a sharp drop in exports. A notable feature of this downturn has been the automotive sector's struggles. Canada's auto sector, once a shining example of North American integration, has been dealt a heavy blow by the 2025 trade war. As U.S. tariffs on Canadian vehicles took effect, the industry faced significant challenges. General Motors, a prominent player, announced the idling of 2 Canadian assembly plants, resulting in job losses and a contraction in manufacturing. This downturn has had cascading effects on related industries, including parts suppliers who have also been hit by reduced demand and the loss of a vital market. According to data from the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, Canada's auto parts makers saw a staggering 46% plunge in vehicle-to-vehicle aftermarket sales in June compared to the same month last year, underscoring the profound impact on this crucial sector. In response to these adverse conditions, some businesses have taken drastic measures. Iconic Canadian companies like Roots, a well-known apparel brand, have sought bankruptcy protection as they grapple with the financial repercussions of the trade war. Others are making tough choices, such as reducing their workforce to stay afloat. Meanwhile, business investment plummeted by over 10%, exacerbating the economic strain, with companies scaling back on expansion plans due to heightened uncertainty and risk. All told, the second quarter GDP report paints a grim picture of an economy grappling with external pressures, particularly from the ongoing trade conflict with the United States. The contraction is not solely due to the trade war, but it significantly contributed to the downturn. The automotive sector's downturn and the decline in exports are direct consequences of the tariffs imposed by the United States. These challenges have pushed Canada's current account deficit to a record $17.5 billion, marking the highest level in almost 30 years. This situation has raised concerns about the sustainability of Canada's large and persistent current account gap. The trade deficit in goods and services has ballooned to nearly 20 billion Canadian dollars, a dramatic increase from the modest gap of the previous quarter. The current account deficit has also widened to $1.84 billion, primarily driven by the worsening trade balance. This trend reflects the substantial decline in exports to the U.S., which fell by over 13%. The numbers tell a stark tale of economic strain, signaling that the trade war is taking a heavy toll on Canada's financial standing. The escalating deficit raises questions about the country's economic resilience and the need to diversify trade partners to mitigate risks associated with over-reliance on a single market. On top of all this, there's a growing divide between Canada and the United States over their shared border. As talks between the two countries continue without much success, new challenges keep arising, adding more stress to the relationship. Recently, the U.S. decided to stop giving Canada special treatment when it comes to small packages crossing the border. Until now, Canada and the U.S. had an agreement that kept things simple for businesses sending small packages back and forth. They didn't have to pay extra fees or deal with complicated paperwork. But now, the U.S. wants to change that, something that's worrying both Canadian sellers on Amazon and those who just want to buy things online. Starting in January, Canadians will have to pay more for shipping and might not receive their online orders as quickly as before. This decision hasn't just affected individual consumers. Many small businesses in Canada rely on selling on Amazon to reach customers in the U.S. market. When those customers place orders, Canadian sellers send the products from their warehouses in Canada. Amazon handles the delivery and provides customer service. But with the upcoming changes, Canadian sellers will face higher costs and longer shipping times. This shift could make it less appealing for customers to buy from Canadian sellers. Some businesses are even thinking about closing their online stores rather than passing on the extra costs to customers. So here's the situation we're in. Relations between Canada and the United States, two close neighbors, have reached a critical point. The trade war initiated in 2025 has evolved into a multifaceted crisis. Tariffs, once imposed on billions of dollars worth of goods, are now being revoked by Canada as part of conciliation efforts. But so far, these gestures have not yielded substantial results in stabilizing the situation. The economic fallout has been severe, with Canada's GDP contracting in the second quarter of 2025. Sectors like automotive have been particularly hit hard, leading to plant closures, job losses, and reduced investments. The trade deficit has widened significantly, raising concerns about Canada's economic stability. The recent decision to remove duty-free exemptions for small packages adds another layer of complexity to an already strained relationship. Both countries have important things at stake. Canada needs to protect its industries and workers from unfair competition. At the same time, the United States has leverage in the relationship and could potentially exploit it further. There's a lot of uncertainty about what will happen next. Will Canada take a harder line on trade? How will the U.S. respond? How will the latest developments around small package imports affect the larger relationship? Nobody can say for sure, and that makes the future of the Canada-U.S. relationship even more unpredictable. That said, some voices are calling for de-escalation. Many in Canada see the economic pain inflicted by the trade war as proof of the need for a different approach. They argue that it's essential to find ways to work together rather than resorting to protectionism. On the other side, there are those who believe that Canada should stand firm and push back against what they view as unfair treatment from the United States. They contend that Canada has the right to protect its own industries and workers, and that standing up against the U.S. is necessary to ensure fair competition. The situation has sparked heated debates in the media, with commentators divided on the best way forward. Some are calling for a more cooperative approach to resolve the issues that led to the trade war in the first place, while others advocate for stronger countermeasures to defend Canadian interests. As the debate intensifies, it remains to be seen how political leaders will respond and what direction the Canada-US relationship will take. Meanwhile, some U.S. lawmakers are expressing concern over the economic fallout of the trade war. They acknowledge that while tariffs might help certain industries, they also hurt consumers who have to pay more for goods. These lawmakers are pushing for a more balanced approach that considers the broader impact on the economy. They're calling for diversification of trading partners, to reduce reliance on any single country, and for support for industries that have been negatively affected by the trade war. However, the White House remains committed to its hardline approach. Despite calls for moderation, the administration is doubling down on protectionist measures, signaling a willingness to prioritize domestic interests over free trade principles. In conclusion, the 2025 trade war between Canada and the United States has had a profound impact on both countries. While the situation started as a dispute over trade practices, it has escalated into a multifaceted crisis affecting economies, industries, and even diplomatic relations. The tit-for-tat tariff measures have resulted in economic pain, particularly in sectors like autos and manufacturing. The widening trade deficit and the threat of further escalation add more stress to the relationship. Calls for de-escalation and diversification of trade partners are growing louder, but the path forward remains uncertain. The decision to remove duty-free exemptions for small packages introduces additional complexity to an already fragile situation. The future of the Canada-US relationship hangs in the balance, and it's essential for both countries to find common ground to stabilize this vital partnership. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week.